Well, this Penn State team doesn't have a lot going for them right now. So, what chance do they have against number one Ohio State?
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Does Penn State even have a chance? You are locked on to Penn State football. And as always, thank you so much for checking out another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. My name is Zach Seyko, and I'm your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling. How can Penn State keep it close in this one where they were a 20.5-point underdog, but that line has actually gone back? The Sharps, do they like the Nittany Lions to cover here? So I'm going to give you my final score prediction later on. Why Ohio State looks like a national title contender. Once again, everything you need to know about the Buckeyes from Penn State's point of view. But we are going to begin with the Nittany Lions. 4 back-to-back heartbreaking losses. They get the bye week to somewhat get a bit of a reset here. Head coach gets fired in the middle of the season. What can Penn State do to give themselves a chance in this game? I mean, Drew Aller's out for the season. Your running backs, Kaytron Allen stepped up in a big way, but Nicholas Singleton, the guy everybody thought was better out of the running back duo, takes a significant step back. No answer at wide receiver again. Tyler Warren seemed like the superstar and carried the offense a season ago. The offensive line also regresses in a major way, and Jim Knowles was not the key that, well, myself included, thought was going to unlock this Penn State defense and make them an even better unit from a season ago. So that's where this Penn State team is. A lot of expectations where they fell way short. Okay. So Drew Aller's out for the season. So it's tough to speak on him, but his performances hit or miss, right? He throws that costly interception against Oregon. Penn State ends up firing James Franklin. I've gone on the record and said, I like what Terry Smith has done since taking over. There is fight in this team. They're going to have to act as that disruption. Okay. You got really nothing to play for at this point in time. On an individual basis, sure, because most of the prominent players on this team are going to go off to the NFL. So you got to improve your draft stock. Okay. You really got to make a name for yourself at this point in time. But you can go mess stuff up. Be that bull in the china shop for this game against Ohio State. Just find a way to disrupt things. Not many people are giving you a chance. You are a significant underdog in this game. But I think Terry Smith has been somewhat of a refresh here for this Penn State team that, didn't really, I don't want to say it was an identity crisis, but certainly was struggling with its identity for this season. So now you have Ethan Grunkemeyer at quarterback. Go figure. He is also from the state of Ohio. Drew Aller was as well. Now Grunkemeyer gets the start as that Ohio native. Jim Knowles is returning to Ohio State where he had so much success. Is there any motivation there? Here's what Penn State is trying to do to give themselves an opportunity against the Buckeyes, okay? They're going to lean on the ground game because they have to, and it needs to start with Kaytron Allen, first and foremost. Allen has been so much better than Singleton. It's almost like a tale of two running backs in this instance. Allen is chasing after the all-time Penn State rushing yards record. He has 98 carries this season, 612 yards, 9 touchdowns compared to Singleton, 76 carries for 274 yards. And one of the reasons that Penn State didn't win some of the games, I will stand by this take. I think that Penn State absolutely beats either of both, probably UCLA or Northwestern. Maybe I won't go as far to say Oregon as well, but James Franklin, I don't think he gets fired if there was a clear shakeup in the depth chart. Not they're splitting snaps, they're splitting drives. Kaytron Allen needed to be RB1 from the start. It was noticeable, and Penn State never made that change until Franklin got fired. Now there is a clear separation where Allen is running back number 1. Singleton is the backup. So what is Penn State's plan with the ground game? Well, you have the element of surprise, at least. And it sounds like Penn State is trying to get some extra creativity out of Andy Kotelnicki. Not like you're going to, he might be too creative to a fault. when it comes to his play calling. But you have two talented running backs. I still believe that vintage Nicholas Singleton is in there somewhere, right? But you got to find other ways to get him the football in space. You can do that. So I'm expecting maybe some Wildcat, some different things to get both Allen and Singleton on the football field. And something I've said for the longest time about Penn State's offense, especially going into this season, the best version of this offense, the best 11 football players on the field included Singleton and Allen together, not one or the other, both. And my assumption was, hey, you have the depth chart here at running back. You have Quentin Martin, Cam Wallace, Corey Smith, right? You can afford to put both running backs on the football field. I guess at the end of the day, Penn State never believed that. And part of the reason for these offensive struggles was because depth took a hit on the offensive line because they wanted to run seven offensive lineman formations, They wanted to go heavy fronts and just run the football aggressively and effectively. And it felt like they never got to that. Why did they never get to that? Is this a moment to do that against Ohio State's defense, or at least try it? You're healthier than you've ever been on the offensive line. You might as well roll it out now. 6 offensive linemen, 7 offensive linemen. That's what they wanted to do originally. Maybe 4 tight ends. I thought they had the depth at tight end to do just that, and they never did. So it's the creativity. It's kind of the unknown here that's really going to benefit Penn State if they want to go in and try to pull off the upset or definitely cover in this game. Something else we're going to see that's different for Penn State. Ethan Grunkemeyer, if he's going to get comfortable passing the football, and again, Ohio State's defense is one of the best, number 2 in the nation when it comes to yards per play. They are stifling, and that secondary is still one of the best in the nation. The transfer wide receivers have not lived up to expectations. Far from it. I will give credit to Devontae Ross. I think Ross has done very well and kind of lived up to my expectations. But Kyron Hudson, Trevor Pena, since week 1, nowhere to be found. And Pena dropping the touchdown, potential go-ahead touchdown in the game against Iowa, game-winning touchdown. And it's been really disappointing from those two. Now you're seeing a true shakeup, and this was another one of those criticisms in the middle of the season. Kobe Howard, Tyseer, Denmark. Oh, they're generating buzz. They have all the potential in the world. Then why aren't they playing? Well, now they're going to get their opportunity. Better late than never, I suppose. Also an unforgiving matchup because as much talent as I think Kobe Howard and Tyseer Denmark have as freshmen, as a true freshman and a redshirt freshman, respectively, this is going to be a very difficult matchup here. So I don't have the highest expectations for them to take over in this game. I would like to see them contribute, but I'm eager to see if just the change up there actually helps Ethan Grunkemeyer and gives them some sort of leverage within the offense. And remember, Jim Knowles' defense, when I look at this Ohio State matchup and look closer at it in the third segment there, Penn State's defense has no response for mobile quarterbacks. Well, fortunately, Julian Sayin is not that true dual threat quarterback, or not to a point where he's not going to roll out and be somebody that uses his legs effectively. And why would you need him to? He's completing 80% of his passes. So Penn State's defense actually might just get a little bit of a buffer here. You have the motivation for Jim Knowles to prove something against his former team. Here's what I'll say about Penn State's defense. Unfortunately for this defense, they are pretty one-dimensional as how you can limit them or how you can just go at the defense. You can attack them by taking away 3 players and 3 players only. If you take out Dennis-Sutton, Zane, Durant, and Amari Campbell out of the 11 players on defense, you win your play. Knowles has got to find a way to get those guys in better isolation spots so they can avoid double teams or find a way to maximize their strengths. Easier said than done, but that's been the way that Penn State's defense has operated this season, especially since Tony Rojas went down with an injury. So Penn State coming into this one with not a lot of expectations. No one's giving them a chance to win. Can they cover, though, against the number 1 team in the country that's looking like a national title favorite here? What does Ohio State bring to the table with Matt Patricia, Brian Hartline, who could potentially be Penn State's next head coach? The Buckeyes, dominant across the board. We'll talk about their scouting report coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets. That's right, $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And lines are available for Penn State versus Ohio State. The Buckeyes are an 18.5-point favorite, minus 1,400 on the money line, plus 830 if you're thinking Penn State for the upset. The total set at 44.5. If you like those lines, you can bet them over at FanDuel.com and the FanDuel app. And remember, new customers get $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Still to come, I'm going to give you my final score prediction if the Nittany Lions can actually pull off the upset, despite everything I've laid out here in this previous segment. But when it comes to the Buckeyes, I mean, they don't miss a beat. They lose, presumably, at the beginning of the season, the best defensive coordinator in all of college football. Well, there's certainly been a reset on expectations there now. Hasn't there been? Matt Patricia comes in immediately, inherits a lot of talented players, but you have to be able to effectively put those players in positions to succeed. And he's done more and then some. Because Jim Knowles' defense is complicated, right? It's a 3-year setup. You got to wait until that third year to finally get the most. And eventually that worked for this Ohio State defense when Knowles was the defensive coordinator. But same doesn't apply there for Patricia. There was no drop off. There was no, I like what Johnny Manziel had said about it. And Patricia's probably going to go back to the NFL. Maybe even after the season. Who knows? And Ohio State will find an adequate replacement, I guess. But we'll see, right? I don't want to speak. And Ohio State people watching this are going to say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. I imagine Patricia has some interest in getting back to the NFL. But what Manziel said was that Patricia, this is easy for him, scheming up against the likes of Drew Brees and Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and Ben Roethlisberger on a day-to-day basis. And I know he was on the same team as Tom Brady, but to go up against him routinely in practice is my point, okay? So he's gone up against some of the best NFL quarterbacks in all of history. This is easy for him. Ohio State, number one in the country. They're undefeated. It doesn't matter it really doesn't matter who the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator are at this point. Ryan Day just has Ohio State peaking. And that's why you see Penn State continue to be interested in whether it's Jim Knowles or potentially Brian Hartline as another coach, why they keep going back to the Ohio State well. It works. It works. And this was the year to do it, which is why we talked about the way that it was, but it didn't matter. Hindsight's 2020, wrong about everything, that there was no drop-off on offense, given a new first-time play caller, a new starting quarterback going into a second season. You have a new running back. You have a shakeup on the offensive line, but that's arguably the best offensive line, or one of them, top 5 at an absolute minimum in all of college football. But it helps with your first-time play caller and your first-time starting quarterback together when you have Jeremiah Smith, who, and I like the way that Terry Smith had said this, the interim head coach for Penn State, said, Jeremiah Smith would have been a top 3 pick last year as a true freshman wide receiver. He'd be a top 3 NFL draft pick in this upcoming NFL draft. He's definitely going to be in the following NFL draft. So when you have Jeremiah Smith, oh, but you also have Carnell Tate. Oh, but you also have Brandon Inniss. Oh, but you also have Max Clare among the rest of the depth chart of the supporting cast that could go in at any point in time for this Ohio State team. That makes Julian Sain's job very easy. It also helps out the running game, because when you have to devote extra resources to stopping or limiting, just trying to limit Jeremiah Smith, who has 49 catches, 602 yards, 7 touchdowns, and Carnell Tate, 34 catches, 587 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Are you leaving them in one-on-one coverage Jim Knowles is probably going to do that because he has no choice, or else Ohio State and Bo Jackson. No, not that Bo Jackson. No, different Bo Jackson, true freshman running back Bo Jackson, but he's emerged as the leading running back for this Ohio State team. You still have to find a way to respect the receivers without just not committing anything to stopping the run either, by playing back off coverage, by devoting an extra safety. So it's going to be interesting what Jim Knowles decides to do, because he likes to run a lot of man with some unique zone coverages, right? To roll into those things that are deceiving. But Brian Hartline knows the game. Ryan Day knows the game, right? They know what to expect from Jim Knowles. So that's a matchup to watch. It is how Ohio State's offense is going to, knowing what Jim Knowles likes to do and Penn State's weaknesses, and just your overall matchup advantage. I mean, Penn State doesn't have a cornerback. I thought A.J. Harris, again, A.J. Harris is going through a bit of a regression of his own. I'm not saying that, he was going to stop Jeremiah Smith. Nobody's going to stop Jeremiah Smith. But there was chatter going into the season that A.J. Harris was destined to be, or at least considered for being a first-round pick. First time ever in Penn State's history that a cornerback gets taken in the first round. At a very minimum, he'll be an early selection in day 2. That's not going to happen. He's probably going to have to come back to college. With the transfer portal, new coaches, I don't know what's going to happen with AJ Harris or a lot of these other players. You would like a bulk of this team to return for next season. Different conversation. But that matchup, Jeremiah Smith versus AJ Harris, that goes all to Jeremiah Smith. And then Carnell Tate versus Elliott Washington, Audavian College. Advantage, Carnell Tate. So you're going to roll a lot of coverages. You're not going to leave them in single looks a lot of the time, but then that compromises your run defense, especially when Penn State, like I said, the 3 things that you need to do against Penn State's defense: take away Zane Durant, you double him on the interior, you somehow just roll the play away from Dennis-Sutton, just take him out of the play, whether that's by proxy or actually devoting extra resources to blocking him, and then finding a way to get a hat on Amari Campbell, the only reliable linebacker at this point in Penn State's defense, because Tony Rojas went down with injury. So is it Jim Knowles' fault? Is it Penn State's personnel just not having the star power needed to run this system? I mean, it's the chicken or the egg debate. You're going from what Jim Knowles was able to have at his disposal at Ohio State to run all, and then again, the 3 years to build things up. And now you got to find a way to mask some of those inconsistencies across the board, because they are so apparent. Your defensive tackles are not what they need to be. Your linebackers are not what they need to be. I still think the secondary is still pretty good, pretty capable, but the reason they're so busy is because they have to come down into the box to stop and help limit an opponent's ground game, because the front 6, because it's a 4-2-5, is not doing its job when it comes to Penn State's defense. And then I think Matt Patricia might have one of his easiest game plans to put together. He'll say otherwise, but when Penn State does not throw the ball effectively, and Ohio State has now done this for multiple seasons in a row, they'll play pretty back off coverage for maybe the first or second drive. And Jim Knowles was coordinating that. So who knows if Matt Patricia will be a little more aggressive right out of the gate. But I feel like Ryan Day had influence there. Just let's see what they are going to do. Let's see if they're going to even try to throw the ball. Probably not, because I'll get into the game plan in the third segment here along with my predictions. But all Matt Patricia really has to do is stack the box, put 7 or 8 in the box every single time, and dare Penn State to throw to the outside in one-on-one matchups. That is why it is so crucial for Penn State to run the football effectively, because in order to create those explosive plays, you need play action, because whether it's Kobe Howard or Tyseer Denmark or Trevor Pena, Kyron Hudson, Devontae Ross, the ground game is going to have to set up the passing game. And if Ohio State says, we dare you to throw the football, we're going to put 8 in the box. One-on-one coverage everywhere else. And then for Penn State, it's, what do you do? because the passing game, other than some short passes, the intermediate, the long pass plays are nowhere to be found. Absolutely nowhere to be found. So Matt Patricia doesn't have to do anything complicated. He'll disguise some coverages, try to trick Ethan Grunkemeyer. Thought it was interesting that Grunk had a lot more flexibility to change different looks at the line of scrimmage in his first start against a top 10 defense against Iowa. Is that dialed back? Do they continue to give him the full reign at QB to make those checks, to make those adjustments? Going into a second game against the number 1, number 2, give or take, defense in the country. Oh, we'll see how they handle that. But that's what Penn State's going up against with Ohio State in a game that was supposed to be top 10, top 5 matchup. That's what everyone was hoping for. And now it's almost a 3-touchdown spread with Ohio State being a clear favorite. And nobody thinks that Penn State will be able to upset them. But maybe this guy thinks that Penn State, I'm not going to go that far, but I do have a case for why I think they can and should cover in this game. They'll make it a little more respectable than people are giving Penn State credit for. I'll explain why coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIH Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls, and with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, I'm going to give you my final score prediction and how Penn State can keep this game close. I'm going to say 31-17, Ohio State over Penn State. I can't take them for a full-on upset, but I can take them to give a more respectable performance. At some point, Ohio State's just going to out-talent Penn State here, and Penn State still has a lot of talent. That's why I appreciate my counterpart over at Locked On Buckeyes, Jay Stevens, for saying, I don't know that it's a talent issue. I don't know that it's a skill issue. I think it's a confidence issue. And you know what? I mentioned it in this show, and I agreed with him when we had our crossover episode that Penn State had a bit of an identity issue in this season. And they never lived up to expectations. They crumbled under the pressure, and then it's back to back to back to back heartbreaking losses. Penn State has not beaten Ohio State since 2016. And it took a miracle blocked field goal to win that game, 24-21 at home. And Penn State's never been able to do it since. Should have done it in 2017, should have done it in 2018, but close doesn't matter, right? And Ohio State, great coaching down the stretch. You know, that was one of Franklin's biggest criticisms, is that he wasn't able to win the big game. And well, Ohio State 0-16 against opponents that were comparable or slightly better, that were in that elite category. 0-16 since 2017. That is why, one of the reasons why Franklin is no longer employed at Penn State. So I want to call him Big Game Terry Smith, BGT, Big Game Terry here, because Penn State's going to pull out all the stops. And that's why I think Penn State covers this game. That's why I think they cover the spread. And you're seeing there's a little bit of sharp action here, because it went from 17.5 to 20.5 back down to 18.5. Penn State can get this to 2 touchdowns, maybe within. Okay, it's still a talented team. And if this is a team that is ready to just try to prove something against a team that has dominated them for the better part of a decade, for over a decade plus, this is your last opportunity for the seniors to try to prove a point, to try to do something. It's a personal game for Jim Knowles and returning to Columbus. Ethan Grunkemeyer, you know, you're going up against a top 10 defense one week and then the number 2 defense another week here. but Ohio State will be able to out-talent Penn State, and why they were able to keep it close in that game against Iowa. Field goal block at the end of the first half that, really keeps them in the game and gives them some momentum, but they weren't able to. I mean, that's an Iowa team that I don't think is that good, actually. They're good, don't get me wrong, but that's not a team that's contending for a shot at the Big Ten conference title. No. Ohio State is much further ahead here, and Ohio State can go in, win this game fairly comfortably, but I still think 18 to 20 points, whatever you're catching the spread at, is a lot. So Penn State needs to run the football effectively. They're going to get creative. I think we are going to see Wildcat. We might see, depending on Jackson Smolik, 2 quarterback systems. And it's all these different things that you have to account for. I think Penn State's going to roll out some special teams trickery as well. And if you're Ohio State, I think at some point, one of those is going to manufacture one of those plays. A few of those plays are going to manufacture points for Penn State, but it's not going to be enough at the end of the day. Again, it's so simple to attack Penn State against their offense and against their defense. Take away those 3 players that I've mentioned, and on offense, just sell out for the run, sell out for stopping Kaytron Allen, and dare them to throw the football. And as much optimism that I have for Tyseer Denmark and Kobe Howard as 2 young and up-and-coming wide receivers, this isn't the matchup where you get to have that breakout game. Hopefully you get something from them, just something. But I need to see more creativity. If we don't see any of that creativity, then this is a blowout. It's because I'm expecting Andy Kotelnicki to try 7 offensive lineman formations, 3 running back sets, Wildcat, with whether it's a running back or a wide receiver, anything. Different trick plays, the 2 quarterback system. Terry Smith said it against Iowa. You might as well do it again because you're guaranteed to miss the playoff. He said empty the clip. Well, do it again. Do it again against Ohio State and see what it gets you, because a lot of these, I feel like Penn State was holding some play calls back a little bit because, well, we don't know if our depth chart is that short up, and we can't risk an injury here. We can't do this because of XYZ, and because we got to think about the long-term outlook of this team. All that's off the table. What are you planning for? What are you preparing for later on? Are you worried that you might not have player XYZ against Michigan State? This is the game to try to shake things up, rattle Ohio State any way you can, and just prove that you were the team that most people thought you were at the beginning of the season. But 31-17 is going to be my final score. Again, let me know yours. Let me know your prediction down in the comments section. This game kicks off at noon. Man, Fox can't help itself. They love any Ohio State game. That's why it is if the Fox, CBS, NBC contract has been bad for anybody, it's been Ohio State. I get it. I really do. But you bring in the ratings. Ohio State brings in the ratings. So that's why Fox is trying to maximize it there. But that one kicks off from Ohio State, 12 Eastern time, big noon kickoff on Fox. And we'll see if Penn State can, make this game a lot more interesting than most people are anticipating it to be. That is going to do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Appreciate each and every one of you for checking out this episode. Again, let me know your predictions, your thoughts down in the comment section. Be a part of this conversation. We do this daily if you are new here. Thank you to the everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, become one, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams.